In Châtelet, my dudes, and welcome to Polecat Cast number 110, Kekistani Fashion Police, where our stealthy polecats ferret out the best feels, funnies, and what the fucks to discuss Slam Bam Badger style. Buckle up, buckaroos, try to secure your sides, and mind your spines. Also, maybe don't eat anything beforehand, and make sure the bleach is locked up tight, although it probably isn't if you saw the latest Bill Nye video that's been circulating the internet. Today's Polecat panel consists of the big half of Big and Robot, Scott, the silverback self-aware simian, Max Darrett, Simpsons-kin, and definitely not a giant sentient Twinkie, not that there's anything wrong with that, Polecat Punster and Pussycat Punisher Hannah, Dr. Random Cam, Panda, Puppet Master, and Long-Range Rhetorician, and me, your host, the Doge in Charge. Today, we will be discussing the following topics. Creator of Assassin's Creed, Patrice Desilets, I think that's how you say it, I don't care if that's not, was asked what can only be seen as the most important and hottest burning question on every developer and consumer's mind. How will you address gender inequality in game development? He answers by saying he won't hire men in an energized fashion. Specifically, he won't hire dicks. Peak virtue signaling, by the way. But fails to realize that even when you insult and discriminate against men, women are the ones that are most affected, you shitlord. What has the world come to that humble little fashion designer Zara can't even include an image of the god of chaos Kek? Could it be that Glamour magazine has provoked the good people of Kekistan and in so doing might incite mean jihad? Those normies. Age of Shitlords pulls out the old tapes, scrolls, and hieroglyphs of the internet 2014 to look at the memes of yesteryear. For those of you too young to remember, it was a current year far before our current year, where white knights rode in on steeds of moral superiority to openly call out Gamergate supporters and accuse them of misogyny, which of course is the most vile crime of the internet. How have these pillars of ethics, tolerance, and humanity fared since the fallout of Gamergate? They have been weighed, they have been measured, and they have been found wanting. Looks like the Huffington Post has been Huffington glue again. Well, let's call it an effort. In an effort to virtue signal by shitting on white men, the Post has gotten into some hot water with a pressombudsman, I think that's how you say it, pressombudsman who seems to be the last ethical person left in journalism. Soon after this, the editor-in-chief at large has resigned. And finally, our bonus story for the patron-only after show. Are you a retarded feminist who thinks everything is a gendered issue? Do you need an application on your phone that will take up your microphone 24/7, causing it to slow down and waste your battery power? Are you so privileged that data limits mean nothing to you since your beta boyfriend pretty much pays for everything? If you answered yes to any of these questions, then we have just the app for you. Introducing Woman Interrupted, a handy new app that will remind you just how weak, insecure, and narcissistic you really are. Satisfaction guaranteed. If not, it's probably the patriarchy's fault. Anyway, if you would like to participate in our after shows either as an audience member or a participant, please consider becoming a patron at www.patreon.com/honeybadgerradio. By the way, one of the benefits of becoming a patron is that you get to join us in the Minecraft server. So please become a patron if you like playing with blocks. That's another thing you get out of it. Playing with blocks in Minecraft, which is totally cool. And now, before we hand this off to Max to give us the first story, I want to do a couple of shillings, but Hannah is far better prepared than I am, so I'm going to let her do it. So, Hannah?
Okay, I will start with the Anti-Feminist Praxis website, because I think that one's going to take a little longer. And my degree of preparation is only slightly more than Brian's on this. I watched the video and started working on answering the questions. But Nick Redding and Fiddlebogan have started a new site called Anti-Feminist Praxis. You might know those guys from Men's Rights Edmonton, if you're familiar with Men's Rights Edmonton. And you might know Nick also from his Slutwalk videos, where again, one of them he actually stood in front of the slut walk or off to the side of the slut walk with a big sign, a big sandwich board sign that said, "I love sluts," and got their reactions, which were interesting, to say the least. But Now, this site is more in terms of anti-feminism than particular men's rights activism. And the About page pretty much explains it. Feminism is the project to increase the power of women with no clear endpoint uniformly stipulated. It says, so far, anti-feminists have similarly lacked an end game. While many have talked about ending feminism or destroying it or cutting it down to size in some way, none have offered any clear idea for what would constitute defeating feminism. The present website is meant to facilitate discussion regarding a possible anti-feminist endgame by asking people to answer any of the three following questions. Number 1, what is feminism? Number 2, where do you stand? And number 3, what is to be done? Now, in the video, Nick said, where do anti-feminists stand? And I think it's a valid series of questions, because we can oppose feminism's authoritarian push all we want, but if we don't have a clear and organized end game, if we don't have a clear and organized set of goals, all we're doing is just having a massive slap fight on the internet that's going to go on forever. So, according to the About page, the website doesn't exist to sell anti-feminism. It's not meant to persuade people to become anti-feminist. It's meant for those who already oppose feminism or are on the brink of doing so and want to provide marching suggestions, basically, goals. And so this is basically a means of orienting people in their activism against feminism's authoritarianism. The website operates within the message parameters of strict anti-feminism, not as a particularly men's rights outlook. So don't look for it to be about changing laws specifically because of men, or about talking about issues that are not caused by feminists. It looks like it's going to be more about dealing with the specific issues that feminists have caused and the activism of feminists that are blocking legal reform. And it says at the bottom, one might accuse this website of not helping men. This accusation is correct. The website does not exist to help men or harm men or women. However, we do not doubt that the net effect upon humanity will be benign, which the net effect of feminism is not. You know, when I looked at this, my first thought was that this actually is going to help everybody, because feminism is damaging. And if we do get a set of goals together and actually work towards those goals and are able to achieve those goals, as long as the goals themselves are reasonable and fair, then that's going to undo some of that damage. So that actually would help men and women. But the end goal itself is not about gender. It's about feminism. So that's what that's all about. If you just look up, it's antifeministpraxis.com, and anti-feminist praxis is all one word, and it's spelled just the way you would hear it, Praxis for praxis, and that's that site. Mm-hmm. So if anybody has any questions about it, I recommend going to the site, and there's a contact us link. There's also an affirmation of nonviolence, which is important. And then there's some other information on the site that will be interesting to check out. But they do have an email address. Now, the Contact Us page just has that right now. That's antifeministpraxis@email.com. So if you have questions, email antifeministpraxis. The other thing that I want to talk about is not as positive, but is definitely something that is important. Our friend Sevvie Rose has been on the show a couple times. She's the homeless woman who has been an activist to help homeless men. She's in a situation where she can use some assistance housed, but she's in an environment that is becoming increasingly hostile, and she herself is a target of that hostility. And she needs to find someplace else to live. So this is a call out, basically, to see if there's anybody among our listeners that can help her find a place to stay, offer her a place to stay, knows some resources that could assist her in getting out of her current situation. And if you're connected to Sevvie Rose, you can contact her directly to talk about that. If not, then go ahead and contact us. And that would be, I'm at Onero's Grip. That's going to be harder to contact on Twitter. But also contact us at,
Badger,
it's topics at badger.com, isn't it?
Topics at badgerpod.com, yeah.
Badgerpod.com.
Topic.
Okay.
I'm sorry. Topic.
Topic. No S.
Yeah.
Topic at badgerpod.com. She is currently in Florida. Let's see. Hearthwind Paladin asked. She is currently in Florida.
I put it in the low bar, so if you don't see it, you just refresh your page. You'll see the email to help Sevvie Rose, and you will also see the link to anti-feminist praxis.
Okay, good. But yeah, if anybody can help with that, let us know or let her know, because that's a rough situation.
Yeah. Okay, is that everything?
That is it.
Okay, well, thank you, Hannah, for those things. I already put them in the low bar, so we're good to go on that front. And now I will hand it off to Max to read us the summary for the first story. How do you virtue signal, Max?
Okay, well, before I read the summary, I just want to say for the record quickly that while I might not be a sentient Twinkie like Brian says, I am just as sweet and soft, and you'll likely find me snuggling up to ho-hos at your local 7-Eleven. So, Patrice Desilets, which Brian actually said right the first time, is a game developer whose credits include what is considered widely the best Assassin's Creed game, obviously AC2, although, people might argue that Black Flag is probably better, but that's besides the point. And he's also involved. He was also involved with one of my top 5 favorite games of all time, which is Prince of Persia: The Sands of Time. Now, this past week, Patrice attended a game developers conference in Croatia called Reboot Develop. It's probably something completely different in Croatian, but whatever. He was there to present his new game called Ancestors: The Humankind Odyssey. Now, the game seems to revolve around the theory of evolution and playing as several versions of humankind, from when we were apes to Neanderthals to the present and everywhere in between. Now, during the live presentation, Patrice was asked how he would address the issue of gender inequality in game development, as you do, and when he should have said, gain experience so you earn the positions you apply for, or go fuck yourself, Patrice said the following: if the candidate has a dick, he's not hired. I'm not telling the story of humankind only with guys. It didn't happen that way. You need to make babies. Now, to any person with half a brain, you can tell by the structure of his comments that he was being hyperbolic. Of course, he's going to hire men. In fact, considering how many dudes work for a studio in Montreal called Panache Digital Games, it would be very odd for him to eliminate several competent employees at a critical time in his career. However, his comments were nevertheless sloppy in their presentation. It wasn't long before commenters began parodying his comments. One Reddit user said the following in response to his comments. Quote, I don't know what's worse, that he's discriminating against trans women or that he apparently thinks women's purpose is to make babies. On the developer's YouTube channel, you can see several upvoted comments criticizing Patrice's statement, including the following. Ghostbusting says, quote, how to lose customers before a game ships 101. Alienate 84% of your audience with hypocritical sexist comments.
84%?
Yeah, well, he's just giving a rough estimate. I don't know. Maybe there's 16% of women out there that want to play as apes. Lord Masterization says, quote, since I am a proud male, I will be avoiding this game. Now, whether you take his comments seriously or not, I think we can all agree that this is not the way to honor Harambe's legacy. He was an ape, and he had a dick, too. How very dare you, Patrice? How very dare you? God, this is so fucking stupid. Just stick to making games, dude. Jesus.
Yeah. I don't know, man. That game, I saw the trailer for it. It doesn't even look like it. I can't see how much fun that's going to be. Play a
I don't even know what it's about.
It looks like you play prehistoric, like, whatever, the common ancestor or something. Whatever our common ancestor is what it looks like.
It looks like Spore with apes.
Yeah.
That doesn't really sound very good, considering how Sport turned out originally. Although, I want to give the guy credit because he did make 2 incredible games. Prince of Persia: The Sands of Time. If you haven't played that game, it came out back in 2001. It still holds up today. And obviously Assassin's Creed 2, it was that game that sort of saved the franchise because the first one wasn't really that well received, and then it continued on to have an entry pretty much every year since then. So the guy's talented. I don't know what he was thinking when he made these comments. I'd like to think that when he was doing the panel, he was maybe just making a joke and he was being hyperbolic, and then when it comes out in text, people sort of take that and run with it and try to make it a bigger deal than it already is. Although, if he does try to hire exclusively women to try and balance things out, obviously that's a problem, but I don't really see how that's actually going to work out because, obviously there's issues regarding hiring discrimination in Canada, where his studio's located.
There's quite a few things here that we should point out. If you look at the staff picture of Panache Games, or Panache Digital Games, excuse me, there are 2 people in that picture that are not male out of about, I think it's about 20 people or so. So he's obviously not he's not trying real fucking hard to get a lot of women in there. Secondly, as dumb as the thing was that he said, this is another perfect example of the perpetually offended looking for one more thing to be pissed off about so that they have a fucking axe to grind. I mean, I think the thing that the guy said was kind of stupid, obviously. I think we can all agree on that. But
yeah.
The blowback that he's getting and the people that are coming out and being like, oh my God, they had 84% of your player base and all this other horse shit. Get the fuck out of here. These people are just, oh my God, it's like a piece of red meat just thrown on the ground in front of a pack of fucking dogs. They're just so ready to pounce on any little thing. It's like, dude, the guy's obviously, he's like, he's being hyperbolic. He's making a dumb joke, and it was a dumb joke. Let's just be real clear. It's fucking retarded. But, I mean, outrage generated from this, it's empty. It's fucking hollow. It's just one more instance of people wanting to be angry about something, and this is just the latest thing that they found to be angry about because why not?
Well, it could actually be just a sign of how ridiculous things have gotten in terms of we are constantly confronted with stuff like this that is not a joke. We're constantly like the social justice movement, the social justice ideology, that group, all of them, the extreme progressivism, the feminism, all of the different groups that are involved in this under the social justice umbrella has become so hyperbolic in its presentation as to become a Poe of itself at this point. And there's been a number of times now where it's been demonstrated by, something's come out and everybody's been like, oh, that's not real. Vaginal knitting, that's a joke. They're making fun of feminists. Oh my God, that's real.
Yeah.
And like, holy shit, what the hell? And then at the other end of it, 4chan comes out with things like piss for equality and feminists fall for it.
I was just about to say.
And free bleeding. They fell for free. Don't practice hygiene. Hygiene is patriarchal. Oh yes, hygiene is patriarchal. It's almost like watching that scene in The Life of Brian where he's preaching to the masses. You are all individuals, and they all go, yes, we are all individuals, and he face palms immediately because they repeated it in unison. Like, and this is kind of where it takes us to the point where somebody can't crack a joke. And, I've done that on Twitter. Somebody's cracked a joke, and I've taken it seriously because they've said exactly the same thing I've heard over and over again from feminists. When we get people that actually legitimately mean it when they make the suggestion of putting men in camps or having areas where men aren't hired so that women can work better, and that the idea that having men present in the workplace at all is as a detriment to women in the workplace, and so on. And it's very hard to distinguish sometimes between sarcasm and the reality with that end of the political spectrum. So people end up jumping on it. Oh, what was the TV show that was going to come out recently that happened with, where they were parodying, they were going to parody social justice problems, and everybody thought it was a serious presentation, and we all got mad. Well, I shouldn't say we all got mad, but everybody canceled their Netflix over it. Something I couldn't do because
Dear White People thing.
Yeah, Dear White People. People took the Dear White People thing as a condemnation of white people, rather than a show that was going to portray somebody who hates white people as for the idiot that person was. Without even checking into it, there were a lot of people that reacted to it, and I initially reacted to it like, well, if I had Netflix, this would cause me to get rid of it if it's what it looks like, and it wasn't what it looked like. Mm-hmm. And that's what's going. I think that's what's going on with stuff like this, where people are. Everybody's a raw nerve now, right. And so every time anything comes up, and that happens with a lot of situations where there's conflict, and you're in that conflict for a long term, and like a lot of us have been doing this for 10 years or more. Some people have been doing it for 20 or 30 years. And they've been running across these issues, and they've been duking it out online with feminists, and duking it out in the real world in terms of activism and stuff with various groups that oppose men's rights and that oppose libertarianism or independence of individuals and stuff. And they run across stuff like this over and over and over again. It becomes almost automatic to knee-jerk react to it. Yeah. And so it's not necessarily that they're seeking something to be outraged by, but that they are prepped, very strongly prepped, to be outraged every time they see it. Well, because they've seen it so many times.
Yeah.
Another problem I think we're running into, and I was talking earlier with people in the Discord about, is that, all right, back in the day, long time ago, back in the early days of the internet with ICQ and all this kind of stuff, right? We, the fun thing that we used to do, being little troublesome little straight edge kids back in the day, was we'd go to fucking white power boards and we'd start, talking shit. Just making stuff up to see if we could get these, retards agreeing with it. And just fucking trolling them, basically, way back in the day, right? ICQ days, like I say, in our IRC days and shit like that. And it was funny because, we did it at other places too, but that was one of our favorite little hotspots. But we knew that eventually somebody would be like, wait a minute, this can't be right. And, somebody would wise up at some point. But we're at the point now where, I'm an old school troll, not a huge troll, but I just did it, sparingly. But anyway, whatever. We're at the point now where we've reached this, what's the word, the precipice. We've reached this point where there's almost no telling what is a troll and what is serious anymore, because people are so just fucking so crazy and so ready to bite onto any ideological thing that's new, that they can be seen as being a trendsetter, that you could just make shit up and throw it on an Antifa site or something like that. Mm-hmm. And people would start to believe it, because it's the things that they're seeing from the people within their own movement are so crazy that these totally insane made up shits. It's oh, well, okay, that seems about right. I don't even know it's real anymore when I'm on the internet. It's just right. Because you got places 4chan, you've got just independent people just fucking around. You've got people that are just insane. And then you've got ideologues that are pushing all these crazy fucking things, and they're all kind of butting heads in a race to the bottom. It's you look at some of this stuff, and there's no way of telling who's being legitimately serious and earnest and who's just being a shithead trying to stir up nonsense.
Well, this is actually
crazy.
Part of what I've said in the past about the importance of free and open discussion. This type of speech, this crazy speech, this crazy presentation to where it's so nuts that you can't distinguish between it and a parody of it, because it parodies itself. That comes out of safe spaces. That comes out of places where you cannot question the dominant narrative. Right. And where if somebody says something that pushes the line of what is hated, what is opposed in that safe space, and pushes the line of what is accepted in that safe space, just a tiny little bit at a time, it can become more and more septic in terms of the types of ideas and the attitudes towards other people that will be accepted by the people within that safe space. And it eventually becomes cult-like. And it eventually hits that degree of ridiculousness with none of the people in the safe space recognizing what they have become, because they are not exposed to any opposition to that speech. And it's why it's not just why the world itself cannot become one giant safe space. It's also why safe spaces themselves can be a very serious problem. You get people come out of their safe spaces with that toxic ideology, and they start trying to share it with other people. And they don't sound ridiculous to themselves because they had that slow boil where they got just a little colder or a little warmer, a little warmer. Actually, they became, feverishly nuts. But everybody else is getting
feedback against it either. So it's
right.
You're hearing the same thing over and over. It's just, of course,
it doesn't hit their nerves, and so now they run into the brick wall of the general public, going, "Are you serious? That's crazy! How can you even say that?" And they have no idea why what they said was wrong, because everybody agreed with them where they were saying it before.
Yeah. I want to say a couple things to this article too, or to this story. One, obviously, this guy was being hyperbolic, but I think that the reaction that he may have gotten from men that were bothered by it is not without some history, and that's because of the kind of progressive rhetoric we have in media right now. It's sort of like speaking to your, the story about the Dear White People thing on Netflix. I think that if that film or that TV series was coming out 20 years ago, people would not be as upset or would not react as quickly in a negative way as they do now. It's just that these days, the anti-white rhetoric is so prominent and it's so amped up, then yes, people who normally don't even have an interest in discussing, race or fixating on it, and they just want to get on with their lives, are just really tired of the way that, that they're essentially being insulted over and over and accused of, racism and all this shit. Just kind of like men who are just getting to the point where, they just want to get on with their lives, and they're getting sick of being told that they're rapists, that they're abusers, that they're brutes, whatever. It gets to a point where you just, you have zero tolerance for it, and you might react to something without all the information. I'm not forgiving that, but I'm acknowledging that doesn't come out of nowhere in the case of, white people that may have a problem with, this sort of something that sounds like it could be anti-white, especially when, you turn on your internet and you go to any mainstream website and you're going to see things like, how do we get rid of white people? How can we reduce their population? And it gets to the point where you're just like, you're just sick of being shit on. So you're going to react to stuff that may not be, it may not be appropriate if you have all the information. But if you do, and, then I understand where that's coming from. I get it. As far as the other thing I wanted to say, secondly, this is what happens when identity politics takes front and center in areas where it has absolutely no place. It makes no sense. Why didn't everyone in the auditorium facepalm when the person, whoever it was, stood up and asked this man what he is going to single-handedly do to fix gender inequality in game development? That was the most important question of the day. That was the burning question that we needed to know the answer to. Like that sort of thing should be laughed out. of the like they should have been laughed out. Now I get it. He humored them and he answered the question by saying, "I'm not going to hire any more people with dicks." And that comes to my third point. So firstly, I understand where, if there's men that saw that and they didn't take it as hyperbole, because there are so many people in game development and in games media that would say that and not be joking. There are lots of people that would. So I can understand why they would have that reaction. Secondly, I think it's really stupid that question was even a question in the first place. Thirdly, I think that the thing I find the most ironic is that even when this guy jokingly, but let's just say for the sake of argument, he's being totally serious, has intention to discriminate against men because they are men in the gaming industry, because fuck men, right? It's still something that affects women more, because the people who are getting really upset essentially accuse him of transphobia. And if you know how intersectional feminism works, you know that transphobia is actually misogyny in their logical hamster wheel. Because to be transphobic means you have a problem with men who are like women, which means you have a problem with women, because if it was just a man, you wouldn't have a problem with them. Therefore, you have a problem with women. So even when you're overtly sexist against men in a joking way, whatever, and someone gets upset, it's because you're offending women. Because we all know, according to, again, intersectional feminists and the kind of LGBT activists, not just people who are like that, but the activists, the politically interested, they will accuse you of essentially, in long form, misogyny still. So even when it's against men, women most affected. Those are the main things I wanted to point out. So,
snatching victimhood from the jaws of privilege. That's what it basically is.
One more thing I want to add in real quick too is that I think the reason that we see this happening, and the reason that this was even a question, is because we had people like Sarkeesian kind of insinuating herself into the gamosphere, as it were, into gaming, to the point where companies like Ubisoft were bringing her on as an advisor. Like this, like I don't know about anybody else here, but I can't just go in and say, Ubisoft, you need to hire me as an advisor. Like, the gaming industry is scared as fuck. There are a lot of people in the industry that are scared as fuck, and they can't say anything, like, be it developers, publishers, or whatever. And they basically have to toe this line. Like, and I've heard things from people, and, I can't really divulge, but because I'm not trying to put them out there and, cause them trouble, but they basically... There's this it's kind of like what's a good way to describe it? I'm trying to think of a good way to describe it. I'm kind of lost for it, so apologies. But they're afraid of this idea that they're going to be seen as anti-woman. So they have course corrected in such a way that they've just hit a sheet of black ice on the highway, and they fucking thrown their steering wheel hard left and hit the brakes, and they're fucking spinning out of control. It's like, oh God, please don't call us misogynist. Oh God. Because they see what happens. They see what has happened. So people like Sarkeesian and whoever else have kind of insinuated themselves into this system, into this ecosystem of gaming and all this. And they're kind of forced into this to a certain degree. But then you have people who actually believe this kind of shit. And I don't know if this guy believes this kind of shit, but he might. He might be one of the true believers. He might be a listening believer. Mm-hmm. But the fact
I think his answer was sarcastic. Though.
I would hope so. I kind of think it is, but I haven't heard him actually say it, like like live tape. Yeah, but that is a part. That's another part of the problem here is the fact that this sort of situation exists where there are developers that are afraid to say things, or afraid to speak out against it, lest they be able to be labeled like a dirty MRA or something like that.
It's the third rail.
Yeah.
Yeah, they can't touch it.
Exactly.
This formula is this not a new formula? I mean,
Al
Sharpton's been doing this for years. Yep. He took what great activists, great civil rights activists did, and turned it into something to capitalize on. And there's a great division between people who support what he does and people who recognize what he does. And like there was an incident here in Dayton where a man was at Walmart and he picked up a toy gun off the shelf. It's a one of those pellet guns. So it's sort of halfway between a toy and a practice tool, you know.
You mean the guy that was murdered?
And they look real. And he was walking around the store carrying it. He was going to buy it, and he was talking on the phone to his girlfriend. Yeah. And somebody saw a black guy with a gun and called 911 and embellished a lot so that when the cops got there, they thought they were walking into an active shooter situation. Right. And they reacted the way you react when you walk into an active shooter situation. You do not give the guy time to shoot somebody after you tell him to drop the gun if he doesn't do it. And what he said to them before they shot him was, "It isn't real." So they thought he was nuts because there he is holding it. And so there was this big conflict here in town, and there was, there were calls for a hearing, there were calls for an investigation and everything, and the community was dealing with it. And it wasn't an incident where the cops shot a guy because he was black. The guy that called the cops may have had some racist overtones there. That may have been because the guy was black. But when Sharpton showed up here, the community as a whole told him to get the fuck out of town. Just go fuck off, because they know that's what he is. That's what he does. He capitalizes on that shit. He capitalizes on polarizing it and making it worse. And that is what Anita Sarkeesian is. She is the female feminist Al Sharpton.
She's Gal Sharpton.
Yes, she is Gal Sharpton. That is awesome, Brian.
There you go.
If I had points to give for something, you would get all of my points right now.
Hashtag Gal Sharpton.
Hashtag Gal Sharpton.
They've learned how to manipulate the media to get the responses they want. I mean,
and what it's gonna
credit
take.
to them, but they're fucking terrible people, though.
The cure for Al Sharpton is when the local black population tells him to fuck off because they don't want to be exploited by him for money. And the cure for Anita Sarkeesian is going to have to be when other women tell her to fuck off because we don't want to be exploited by her for money. It doesn't matter, but whether to the validity of Sharpton and Sarkeesian, it's irrelevant that racism and sexism are real things that happen. And whether or not they are real things that happen to every race and every gender identity, blah, 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 that is all irrelevant to the validity or invalidity of what these people do. Because they are not trying to solve these problems. They are not trying to fix anything. They capitalize on polarizing the division between people over these issues. Mm-hmm. They are agitators. They are exploiters. They are a shade away from being human traffickers because they create animosity between people. And to a degree, they create not just animosity, but actual aggression between people so they can profit from it. Mm-hmm. There isn't anything sicker that you could do as a public job than that and get away with it. You would have to delve into things that the public would look at and say, holy shit, we need to incarcerate this person immediately, to get any sicker than that.
Well said. So before we move on to the next story, I just wanted to say that I never played Prince of Persia. So I feel like I really should, and I'm sure Max will lambast me for not jumping on that. But
no, it's okay. That game is the shit. It is so stylish. It's like, you have to sort of create a story that is sort of in a symbiotic relationship with the type of gameplay that you have. The whole, using a dagger to travel back in time and fix your mistakes. It's so good. It's so good. Please, if you have never played Prince of Persia, I'm sure you can get it for like $5 off of the PlayStation Network or something.
Yeah, probably.
Treat yourself.
All right, I'll check it out. Sands of Time. I'll check it out. I know that there was a lot of them, and some of them looked not so good. I remember playing a demo for this. Was it the two Twin Princes or something? And you're
yeah.
And it's got like this fucking was it Godsmack or something that was playing in the background?
Yeah, you know what I'll say?
I was like, what's with this what's with this post-grunge music playing while I'm trying to like be a Persian prince? It just didn't fit.
Brian,
but
I'll just say this. The game was made in 2001, I think it was.
Yeah.
It looks like it was made in 2001.
Yeah, it was made in 2001. The score in the first game actually kicks ass, but every game after that, they add in way too much metal guitar that does not need to be there.
It's like it was like a Stone Temple Pilots cover band that, just I don't know. But that was the first thing I wanted to say. So I'll definitely check out Sands of Time. The other thing is, I hope this guy doesn't try to bring in a bunch of identity politics and feminism into his game about prehistoric hominid humanoids, because that shit's going to be awkward as fuck if he's going to be doing hunter-gatherer times, and they're going to try and bring that in. Actually, if anything, I think that would be the sort of arena where you would actually want to show the reasons for the sort of male-female gender roles as they exist today and how they are a product of ancient civilization. But I don't know that would require him to do some homework and realize how we live the way we do now because of the successes of our ancestors. By the way, the name of his game, and the way that they lived before. But I have a feeling that's not what's going to happen. It's probably you're going to be if you're going to play like a female ape ancestor and hunt like fucking mammoths along with the dudes and be cool, totally badass. They'll probably talk. I don't know.
Brian,
yeah.
You know what we should do? We should try to get this guy out of bed.
You know what? Actually, that's not a bad idea. Maybe I can message him.
Dude.
I could try.
Dude.
Get him on.
Yeah. I can give it a shot.
Yeah.
I want to see where he's getting like the research they're doing to do all this. I want to make sure that I want to see where they're getting it. So anyway, let's go on to the next story. I'll do this one because we don't have a write-up for it.
I can't wait.
Goddamn slaves didn't do their jobs this week.
I know.
Oh, I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
Motherfuckers. All right.
How dare they? Making us look bad.
All right, so every couple months, like clockwork, a mass retailer does something so blatantly clumsy that you almost have to wonder whether it was actually intentional. The latest gaffe comes courtesy of Zara in the form of a denim skirt that's being criticized for featuring an embroidery that closely resembles Pepe the Frog, a meme that has been appropriated by hate groups. The skirt in question features two frogs, one in the same green shade as Pepe, and one a mirror image in a darker green hue. Both share Pepe's characteristic thin red lips and bulging eyes, which are obscured by sunglasses. Pepe, a character that began as an innocuous creation by illustrator Matt Fury, was co-opted by a number of hate groups and ultimately declared a hate symbol by the Anti-Defamation League last year. Chicago fashion and music writer Megan Fredrette, totally the person you want to get a quote from, was the first to draw considerable attention to the inclusion of Pepe, or his very close relative, to the offending shirt, tweeting, "Zara is really out there trying to sell a Pepe the Frog shirt, apparently unaware of the current implications of doing that." It would be surprising if no one at Zara was cognizant of the implications of the image, since Pepe gained significant notoriety during the 2016 presidential election, as his image was heavily used by alt-right groups, anti-Semitic factions, white supremacists, and other hate organizations who created Pepe as Trump memes. The usage culminated in an explainer by Hillary Clinton's campaign and the ADL hate symbol designation. The fact that the skirt even exists raises the same question we've been asking for years. Who is approving of this stuff? True, Zara is a Spanish company, so the argument could be made that nuance might get lost in translation, but Zara is also one of the world's most visible, profitable global brands. It's valued at $10.7 billion, according to Forbes, so one might assume they take measures to employ the world's sharpest minds as far as due diligence is concerned. Oh, the irony in that statement. And wouldn't it be great if these Spanish companies were based out of Mexico? The company got a ton of rightful flack in 2014 for a kid's shirt that, with its stripes and yellow star detail, looked remarkably similar to a concentration camp uniform.
Oh, God. One of their greatest hits. Oh, yeah.
And it has been accused of allegedly ripping off designers and featuring a deceptive body-positive advertising. In the wake of the backlash, Zara seems to have removed the Pepe shirt or skirt from its website. Glamour has reached out to the retailer for comment and has not yet received a response.
It's just frogs now. It's just frogs.
It's just
all frogs. I'm going to get it for having that frog puppet, you know. I've been using it since 2007, but they're going to do me out. And then they're going to do Jim Henson. Oh, that was a bad PR move, Jim Henson, going out with that Pepe puppet.
You know what? I actually know some people that they actually stole designs from. I know some artists that they stole some work from.
Oh, jeez.
So, yeah, anyway, so there's that. Just a total side note, but fucking Christ, yeah.
May I just say
Jim
that
Henson is a racist.
the only cool thing about that skirt is the frogs. Like, it looks terrible.
Yeah.
It's like it's. I'm looking at the picture of this. It looks like somebody took a pair of old, worn-out jeans that were falling apart and cut them off way too high up the legs and cut the crotch out and then overlapped and sewed it. Like, that's how denim skirts used to be made at home, is out of old jeans. But these are like worn out to the point where it looks like they're gonna fall apart any second. Like they sewed something that is too old to sew. It is the dumbest looking thing I have seen since people copied off of rock stars whose jeans were ripped because they couldn't afford new jeans in the 80s. And I can't remember which of the... It was one of the singers from one of the big hair bands came out, and he was like, I can't believe people are imitating this. We aren't wearing ripped jeans because it's cool. We're wearing them because we can't afford new jeans. And it is the dumbest looking thing. Like, if you actually go to the article, it is the dumbest looking thing I have seen in fashion. Maybe bubble skirts were dumber.
Yeah.
Because they made you look like you
Crocs are
stuck a
dumber.
marshmallow on your butt. And decided to wear it for the day. But for crying out loud, of all the things to get outraged about with respect to this skirt, I would think they would have gotten more outraged at the idea that it's fashionable for women to look like hobo clowns. as like that's their fashion statement.
They want to live like common
This is
people.
actually worse than Nordstrom's $400 fake mud cake jeans.
Or the shoes, the worn shoes.
The
Remember
worn
those?
shoes.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Like the distressed clothing style. But I just, and I wanted to point out something else too. The language of this article is hilarious. Here we have this appropriation, implications,
Yeah.
notoriety. Like there's some authority out there that has that's the arbiter of what's right and wrong in politics, and of course this is being not just criticized, but called out by this authority for breaking the rules. And because the only other rule that this broke is those sunglasses look like swim goggles. Why the hell didn't they use deal with it glasses?
Yeah,
Well,
that
there's an amphibian.
was a missed opportunity right there.
If they were going for meme magic, they could have at least used deal with it glasses.
Yeah, that
It's
would've
not
been-
that hard. You could make them out of felt. It would be very easy.
Feels bad, man. Yeah. So, I don't know what else to say. I just think it's funny. And you know what? Actually, I will say this. It is really funny that a internet meme that can have so much power over people's opinions of it, that to the point where if someone else uses it for something like this, because I'm sure that this does certainly look like it was inspired by Pepe. but I don't think this Spanish company was thinking this also symbolizes white supremacy and anti-Semitism and Donald Trump and all things terrible. But apparently, because it was declared a hate symbol by the Anti-Defamation League, which what? But because
frog.
Who are not really the arbiters of anything either.
No, they just gave. They're a bunch
not.
of. They're a group of people who gave themselves the title, and they gave themselves the authority to declare what is essentially considered hate symbols, and then they go around and point at hate symbols and say that's a hate symbol, and they did that with Pepe, and it's like, really?
We need to give ourselves a title. We're the Anti-Dumbfuckery League. And we can start labeling things dumbfuckery. Anytime you get this special snowflakey about something, you qualify. So this is the Anti-Dumbfuckery League now labels your organization a dumbfuckery organization, and you are now shamed. That's it. You're just shamed. There's no official anything, but shame on you.
Who was it that labeled it? Was it the Southern Poverty Law Center, or was it somebody else?
Oh God.
Because I know that they had said that it was a hate symbol.
What? Oh,
yeah, the Southern Poverty Law symbol is simply a slander engine for the far left.
Right.
It's their propaganda engine.
Yeah.
Yeah, they basically do the same thing. They just declare things hate groups, and then they by just labeling it a hate group, they have essentially defeated it in that no one will want to know more because they don't want to be affiliated with it, lest they also be declared part of the out group, essentially. So
They're like
basically
the
means
Better
that
Business Bureau of morality, basically.
yeah.
This basically designates Pepe as a special snowflake detector. So, like, if you put somewhere on your clothing, if you put Pepe somewhere on your clothing, it doesn't have to be big. It can be, an inch high. It's just a Pepe somewhere. Guaranteed the special snowflakes around you will spot it and lose their shit.
Okay.
And so, like, everybody that wants to know who the special snowflakes are should wear a Pepe everywhere they go.
Or go into a crowd.
They don't even look like Pepe's, by the way.
Yeah, no.
Just Mikey says, just a frog's head from an isometric angle. They look more like Battletoads from the because they're two different colours, like the Battletoads were.
Yeah,
and like
yeah.
Pepe isn't. Like I say, it'll work with any frog now.
Perhaps the other Pepe is a danker shade of green.
Go around telling people to do a barrel roll. It's like we've gone full circle.
Yes.
You need warfare.
You know another way to root out the snowflake types, Hannah?
Yeah.
Go into a room and you say, there are only two genders!
Oh God.
Yeah. If I had two Pepe I had one Pepe head on my skirt for every gender there was, I would have these. But I wonder, you know what? They should have embraced this instead of taking it down and say, yeah, we got Pepe on our skirt, and see if the sales went up. Observe the sales, because I'm sure that there's probably a good number of women, and I don't mean to be sexist by just, excluding dudes here, that would buy the skirt just to trigger people, just to to be edgy, because it would still get you attention, and you get to claim something that it may not be, because it could be a Pepe and may not be one. It might just be somebody was like, or maybe they just asked their designer to be like, we want frog heads on here. It looks like these are made out of strips of foam or something, or not foam, felt.
It looks like felt.
Yeah, felt. And they were just like, well, I guess I'll just have to figure out how to draw a frog. And they looked online and saw Pepe and use it as inspiration, possibly, without even knowing what it was.
Yeah. That's kind of
felt
what it does.
on your skirt is harassment.
That's kind of what they do, though. They look for popular imagery on the image results, and they basically swipe it and put it on clothing.
Yeah.
That's what happened to a couple of friends of mine that are artists that had their stuff yanked by these people.
And I'll be honest, I could see women
They probably
doing this.
don't know what it is.
I could see women buying that to trigger people, but honestly, if I was going to do something like that, I'd just make my own.
Yeah, right? There you go.
They should make a kilt for the dudes. Pepe
There you
kilts.
go.
But not all distended and shit like this, or distressed, or all ripped up. That's stupid. Buying clothes that look like they've been, worn to like on a fucking, I don't know, while being dragged behind a train or something. Like you don't need that. So
like
And
I will
bedazzled,
be honest.
too.
I have clothes that have holes in them. I have clothes that are falling apart. But it's the reason I have them is because I've had them for 20 years and I don't want to throw them out. They're clothes that I really like, or I don't want to go out and buy new clothes. But I wouldn't buy clothing that was already distressed like that. I think that's ridiculous. To pay for clothing that's already damaged. It's like, what's the point?
Well, you gotta look, cool. You gotta look like the commoners.
It's the
Too fancy. I totally relate to the people that don't have any money and haven't eaten today. Look at me.
yeah.
This is the scam victim detector right here. Do these people pay for clothing that is already damaged? Because
Dude,
if you
you know
pay
what?
for clothing that is already damaged, you have already fallen for at least one scam.
You know what though? Here, honestly, I used to know this girl named Beth, and she wanted to. Her parents she wrecked 3 cars in high school, and they bought her 3 brand new cars. Every time she wrecked a car, they'd buy her a new one. And this girl wanted to be punk so bad. She wanted to be punk so bad, so she would go and hang out with the fucking gutter punks, and she would do stuff like this. She would take clothes and rub them on her driveway to make them look all worn out and shit. It's like, because she just wanted to be a gutter punk so fucking bad because there's all this nobility and poverty, and she would hang out at the squats and stuff. So it's like, this totally makes sense to me, because I've seen people literally do this in real life, where they're like, they want to be down with it's like they think that there's something cool about it. It's like, oh, I want to be down with the lower class.
And the other thing they do is
nonsense.
You're the lower class, right? And you come up with something creative. Like I used to get those little glass seed beads. And for people that don't know them, they're little shiny glass beads that are small enough that the hole in the middle of the bead is not much bigger than the circumference of a sewing needle. And I used to sew designs on, everything was denim in the 80s, right? So I used to sew designs. I had denim boots and I had a denim jacket, and I sewed stuff on my jacket and I sewed stuff on my boots. And I used to sew patches and stuff on my jeans, and I used to take bleach and dye and make different color designs on them and everything. And there were gals in the class behind mine, because the girls in my class were really nice girls. But the girls in class behind mine, some of them were real assholes. And they would absolutely ridicule these clothes. And then some of the girls that, other than the assholes, would start asking me, how'd you do that? How'd you make that jacket look like that? Can you do that for mine? And, I actually had a fee that I would charge for sewing beads on people's stuff. And that actually made it somewhat popular. And 6 weeks later, the girls that were making fun of my funky jeans that looked like a cloudy sky, were quietly coming to me and going, how did you make those? Can you make those for me? Don't tell anybody I asked. And it's like, this is the way, I don't know, popularity, I guess, affects people sometimes, where they, or I guess privilege, I don't know. I don't really believe in the privilege dialogue. I think it's mostly bullshit. But I think there are attitudes that people develop that leads to that kind of behavior, where they'll simultaneously look down on a group of people, but then the things that are admirable about that group of people, like maybe they're especially creative, or maybe they're especially intelligent, or maybe they're especially tough, they'll emulate those things whilst continuing to look down on those people. And I think that's partly what we're seeing in gaming too. A lot of what we're seeing in gaming, with the feminists that are coming into gaming, and they want to emulate the things that have become popular about nerd and geek culture, but they still look down on the guys that are at the bottom of the social ladder that are nerdy and geeky, and therefore somehow uncool by their standards.
Right.
And it's like they get into this culture, and they are somewhat enthusiastic about the culture, and they run into people who have been part of the culture for years and are enthusiastic about it and are pleased as punch to meet other people that are enthusiastic about it, and they want to socialize, and these guys look down on them, and they get, they act like they're all creeped out, and Bertha Better Than You effect takes place, and they start pulling the shit that Anita Sarkeesian is pulling, and Anita Sarkeesian's feeding that. And it's, I think that's this outrage over this skirt, and the fact that like a lot of gals probably would buy it just to piss people off, and the adoption of the ripped up clothing thing, it just sort of all, I don't know, meshes with that to me, that it's just one more example of people latching on to the aspects of a group that they generally look down on. They take the one or two things that they think are cool, and they'll emulate that while still looking down on that group.
Well said. Wow, that was that went off on a bit of a big conversation I didn't expect to have happen over.
It went off on a tangent, didn't it?
A little bit. I mean, I thought we were talking about
Rails?
skirts with dogs on them, or with frogs on them. Sorry, I got dogs on the mind for some reason. Okay, so
Sometimes flowers really do grow from shit. Usually it's just shit, but sometimes.
there you go.
Can I just put out a request to people?
Oh, he's back.
Yeah, sorry, my internet keeps fucking up. But I just wanted to say maybe one good thing that could come out of this is that somebody starts a GoFundMe so we could buy a bunch of these skirts and send them to Shia LaBeouf's house.
Oh, yeah, that'd be perfect.
There you go.
Well, if they took them off the market, we'd have to make them.
They
It
don't.
wouldn't be terribly hard.
Yeah, that doesn't look like it's a large ordeal involved with this.
If you weren't told
No,
it
you
was
just
skirt,
take
you'd
a pair of
wonder what
old
the hell
blue
it is.
jeans, you cut them off at the legs, you rip out the seam of the crotch, and then you overlap it and sew it. And you just sew it by hand. They didn't even hem it, because it's all ripped up. And then you take felt and you cut out the shapes. You could even, there's stuff you can get to put on the back of that felt to make those iron-ons.
Mm-hmm.
So you wouldn't even have to do any stitching if you didn't want to.
You know what we should do if they ever came back on the market. Jaden Smith, he and Shia LaBeouf are pretty tight, and he wears some pretty weird shit from time to time. We should send a bunch of these to his house, and then the next time Shia LaBeouf and him meet up, he'd be like, "What the fuck are you wearing?"
That would be hilarious.
It's a Spanish company. I'm trying to support the Spanish people. I'll put my name on it. I'll put my name on it so that it sells that idea. All right. Well, anyway, so. Let's move on to the next story. Scott, if you could tell us about it's projectors against
Gamergate. During the turbulent first months of Gamergate, bloggers, journalists, and even government officials lined up to sling mud and hurl insults at those concerned about the state of video game journalism and gamers in general. As the years rolled on, interesting and ironic revelations were made about several of gaming's more prominent detractors. Matt Hickey, former tech writer for sites such as Forbes, CNET, and Gizmodo, was noted to have a decisively anti-Gamergate slant. Fast forward to 2017, where Hickey is now facing multiple rape charges after running a fake porn audition scam. Former editor-in-chief of Birth Movies Death, Devin Ferrasi, who called Gamergate supporters misogynist and absolute monsters, also had some dark secrets of his own. Ferrasi stepped down from his position after stories from multiple women emerged concerning his sexually inappropriate behavior. Robert Marmolejo volunteered for Crash Override Network, a so-called anti-Gamergate harassment, I am fucking retarded, I'm losing the line there, anti-harassment organization started by Zoe Quinn to combat Gamergate. Marmolejo found himself under the gun when he was accused of rape by at least 20 different women. Feminist blogger... oh, there you go. Feminist blogger and radio show host Jamie Kilstein accused Gamergate of being about sexism and not ethics in games journalism in late 2014. As of 2017, Kilstein was kicked from his podcast after claims of sexual abuse were levied against him from multiple women. Former writer from The Intercept, Juan M. Thompson, wrote an article in 2015 in which he blamed the online misogyny exposed by Gamergate for the harassment of Zoe Quinn. In 2017, Thompson was arrested by the FBI for making bomb threats to several Jewish community centers under his ex-girlfriend's name. Possibly the worst offender is former Democratic Senator of California, Leland Yee. In addition to passing 2 bills restricting the sale of advertisement of video games, Yee spoke highly of Anita Sarkeesian, calling her courageous for taking important issues on of sexism in gaming industry. God, I am fucking terrible at reading right now. He was also one of California's most outspoken anti-gun advocates. I'm noticing some fraud and short here in a moment. Introducing many bills limiting access to firearms and firearm accessories. In March of 2014, he was arrested under charges of racketeering and arms trafficking, of all things.
Whoops.
What? He eventually pled guilty and is currently incarcerated. Just how many more outspoken critics of Gamergate and gamers will be exposed for having a closet full of skeletons? Only time will tell.
I want to call somebody out. Hey, H-Bomber guy, remember that one time where you said, oh, you might want to work on that whole problem with you, assaulting people in real life, and you only cited that one instance where Ralph Retort actually did that? Well, here you go.
There you go.
Yeah.
Right?
Get on that.
This stack of bodies just keeps getting higher and higher as the days go by. I mean, I'm sure there's more than this. I have very, vague recollections of other things having gone on with... Oh, well, hell, we could even, if we want to invoke other people, we could bring up Izzy Galvez. We could bring up the guy from Ubisoft that was part of the whole Zack Attack thing. There are so many people on the anti-Gamergate side who are very much the new conservative Christian anti-homosexuals who are being caught in churches as pastors like Ted Haggard, or being caught in a airport bathroom with a young boy. These people are these people that are espousing these, protect your families and down with the homosexuals are the ones being caught, doing all these fucking illicit, horrible, illegal things. So this is not surprising. This is not surprising at all. So I am sure we're going to find some more, lol cows that can be milked till the end of time before the next 5 years are over. But this is a pretty good start, I'd say.
Yeah, and also I want
to point out one thing.
Go ahead.
Accusations, are the same regardless of who they're against. They're accusations; they're not necessarily proved. The thing that is a point in the fact of all these accusations is, had they been on our side of the fence, they would be taken by the other side as proof of sexual misconduct. It wouldn't matter whether there was never a hearing. It wouldn't matter whether there was never anything that came out of it other than the fact that the person was accused and faced repercussions for being accused. They'd be taken as confirmation that Gamergate was about harassing women.
Right.
But they ignore that standard on their side. And there are some that have been confirmed. There are some people whose behavior has been. And there's, like, anybody, for instance, that's familiar with Robert... I can't find his name in the thing. He was Unseen Perfidy.
Marmaleo.
Yeah, Marmaleo.
Yeah.
I can't think of Marmalade. What was the end of his name? And I'm looking, and it's a wall of text. And I'm dyslexic, and I don't do walls of text very well. But no, if anybody was familiar with his behavior on Twitter, the accusations against him become easier to believe because you know his personality. Accusation is still not proof. Lots of accusations are still not proof. Bill Cosby is facing lots of accusations, and the judges that are ruling on him are like throwing things out. They're, no, we're not buying this, and it's the reporting on it's sort of dying down because of that. But the fact that had it been somebody who was a Gamergate supporter that these accusations were against, anti-Gamergate would have jumped on it, like ants on sugar. Or flies on shit. Yeah. The fact that they're not doing that when it's on their side. Is very hypocritical.
You mean do as I say, not as I do mentality? You mean there's a problem with that? What? Yeah. Well, let's not forget one more. Anita Sarkeesian's friend, the pedophile, who ran her fucking streams. Yeah. I forget his name right offhand, but again, like I said,
that one was
bodies, man.
There was actually a conviction
pedophile.
there.
Yeah, he's a convicted
Yeah,
pedophile.
that was not just an
Yeah.
accusation.
But also, we should probably give a shout out to our latest. Somebody gave us a tip.
I was just going to say, I wanted to read that one. James Wilson
Yeah, man, do it.
Scarpia, he gave us a $5 tip. Thank you very much for that. And he writes, so either you are an actual pervert, or when they are done with you, they toss you out. And that's kind of what actually, that was the thing I wanted to bring up, is that, when you lay with lions, like there is, to Hannah's point, as long as it is simply an allegation or an accusation of misconduct, I will not make a judgment on whether or not, on the character of the person based on the accusation. If he's convicted, if he's found guilty, whatever, if it goes to court, because people will just make the accusation, but they won't press charges. They just use the accusation to ruin someone, and that's enough. You don't actually have to go to criminal court to do it. You don't have to go to the police. You can just make the accusation, go to Twitter and say this person did this inappropriate thing, and then you get your friends to do it. If you want to ruin somebody, if that's your goal, if they didn't actually do anything. And so in the case of that, I would say that if you're hanging around with the kind of people who make the same kind of accusations of the people who they oppose, which are basically Gamergaters, like if there are women or feminists or whatever in Gamergate that are saying, I've been abused, harassed, raped, whatever, by people online with their cyber violence all the time, and then you side with them and you say, well, I'm going to listen and believe, and I'm sure that that's what's happening, and those people are scum, and I'm here to help you, and I'm one of the good ones, milady, fedora tip, whatever, then you're basically you're not safe there, because it's only a matter of time before that narcissism that they have that makes them accuse everyone else of targeting them is going to move to you. It's only a matter of time. That is in the case that you are innocent. Now, in the case that you're not innocent, then whatever happens. This is what you deserve, and it also makes sense that people would defend you in the same way that they protect, convicted pedophiles, because you are convenient and helpful and useful to them. And then as soon as you're not, then they don't give a fuck what happens to you. Yeah. So
and let's be clear too that Matt Hickey, we're talking about a lot of allegations here, but Hickey is actually in the process of being indicted for actual rapes.
Yeah.
And the guy that worked with Anita Sarkeesian is a convicted pedophile.
Right. So I'm just saying,
these are very clear instances. But
yes,
I know what you're saying.
We're just basically drawing. It's got to be a clear distinction between people accused of shit and people who actually are convicted of shit. So and that's the main distinction I want to make.
Too. Yeah, and Thompson with the FBI thing too. He's another one. He's actually legitimately in trouble. It's not just an allegation. Same with Leland Yee. But there are definitely others where it's just alleged, type of things.
Yeah, but we are learning that there are these people are pretty flawed, at least.
That Hickey case kind of bothers me in another way. He says he's facing rape charges after running a fake porn audition scam. Mm-hmm. Okay, so the bottom line of that basically is that these women have to be alleging rape based on the conditions of their consent being violated. In other words, they believed something to be true. He lied to them. He was fraudulent. Right. And because he was fraudulent, they consider their consent and active participation in a sex act invalid. I personally don't consider that rape. I can see it as a sex crime. I can see it as something on the equivalent of fraud. But the fact is, they did consent to a sex act. And it wasn't because he had a gun to their head. He was offering them a professional connection, or at least the chance at a professional connection. Now, what if he had a porn studio and he decided they didn't cut the mustard? Would they be able to say that was rape?
Well, it's a little bit more complicated, Hannah, because he contacted them under the auspice of a fake name, and they're apparently, and again, this is alleged at this point until he's found guilty of this, obviously, in court. But apparently, he was actually, in some cases, actually drugging some of the girls too.
Now that would be rape.
Yeah,
if he's drugging them, that would be rape.
This isn't a simple case though. There are other things.
See, to clarify for me, my standard is not consent. My standard is mens rea. You have to actually deliberately take action to contravene the other person's ability or right to refuse, or you have to take advantage of a known inability to refuse.
Mhm.
So if they're passed out, or if you
Right.
know that they're too high to know what they're doing,
And that is
and
apparently
things
the
like that,
case.
or they're too young to know what they're doing, then yeah, you have sex with that, you're a rapist. If you force somebody, you're a rapist. If you use coercive measures to force somebody, you're a rapist. But that's like just the conditions, because this is where feminists have argued in the past, that if a guy says he's wearing a condom, then he turns out he's not, or if it breaks and he doesn't stop, that's rape. Or if they're married and they've had sex for 10 years and he's been cheating for 10 years, every act of sex in the marriage becomes rape based on that. Well, the conditions of my consent were these and you violated them. And I don't buy that. And I could say it's still a scam. If you promise somebody a financial arrangement and there is no financial arrangement behind that promise, that is a scam. And I could see there being, since it was involved sex instead of money, I could see there being a sex crime out of that.
Right.
But I don't know what you would call it. Rape doesn't fit, but the drugging definitely does. That's rape.
Yeah.
Can I just say one quick thing? For the record, I obviously endorse the belief that we should treat all these as allegations, even though they might be our ideological opponents. But I even though I was sort of acting facetiously at the very beginning of the segments, I really, really do believe that we should treat them equally under the law. But I suppose the one line that I sort of wanted to draw from this is not, well, it's more so the fact that what we see is that a lot of this sexually deviant behavior, for lack of a better term, is coming from a lot of these people that tend to be self-identified as male feminists. That's all I was trying to say.
No, I
I
totally agree. I totally agree, Max. And actually, I wanted to add on to that with my last thought on this too.
Yeah.
Is this again? I was going back to what I was saying before. When you lay with, you're laying with the monster that you think is not will never turn on you because you have basically placated it by saying I'm a feminist ally, and therefore I'm immune, but you're not. And the last thing I will say is that as another example of this, a lot of people, when they read this article, they would think of a popular tweet by Patton Oswalt, a comedian and actor, who the tweet read, "The male feminist ally turns out to be a creeper / harasser, is essentially the family values politician turns out to be gay for millennials." And people thought, it's very funny and it's on the nose. However, just want to throw this out there. Patton Oswalt is a outspoken male feminist himself. So what he is doing here is not just pointing out something which is obviously cogent and makes a lot of sense, but he is distancing himself from people and from other male feminists. And I think that this is a tactical choice that he is making. On top of that, he is also doing the one good man thing with his own allies. Okay, so this is not me hoping that it comes out, some point later on down the line that Patton Oswalt himself is being accused of sexually deviant behavior. Although if it did happen, if he was accused, I would not be surprised, because again, a male feminist is only useful to feminists for as long as they find a use for them. Once they don't, then you're going to fade in the background or worse. And this is just what I've seen. I'm talking about political feminists here, and Patton Oswalt's no different. So, all right, and Fruity Catty Girl, DKK. I don't know what unit of money that is, what a DKK is. Denmark. Oh yeah, Marks. Yeah, hello from Denmark. She writes. She gave us 50 DKKs. She writes, "Hello from Denmark. I thoroughly enjoy your shows. Here's a little something to keep things going." I don't know how much that is, but I am appreciative. Thank you so much, Fruity Catty Girl.
Just keep the hype train rolling, people!
Yeah.
Why aren't you using the euro? I thought you guys... Well done for not using the euro. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a good day.
So, Denmark, Sweden. All right. Well, anyway.
Just so you guys know, I think it actually comes out to about $7 American.
Well, hey, thanks.
Right.
Thanks. Every bit helps.
Sam.
The dollar's too strong. It's too strong right now. All right, so
It's you.
Just wash it; it'll smell better.
it's the strongest dollar I've ever seen.
The biggest. It's the largest. It's huge. You're gonna love it.
Believe me, folks. Believe me. All right. Too many people have. All right, but anyway, I'm going to stop doing my politician impressions, which are really bad, and move on to the final article. Huffington Post forced to apologize for racist propaganda. Editor-in-chief resigns. I'm not really a fan of governmental bodies deciding which forms of speech are acceptable and which are not, but apparently that is the status quo in South Africa. The Press Ombudsman of South Africa, a governmental agency that arbitrates all issues relating to the media, has ordered the Huffington Post, South Africa, so don't celebrate too much because I'm sure this is not a Huffington Post that we are exposed to issue an apology for publishing their article titled, "Is It Time to Deny White Men the Franchise?" By the way, before I continue this article, it's important to point out that in South Africa, there is a lot of racism against white people. Just throwing that out there. As we have come to learn, the article was in fact a satirical piece, satire, written by a very clever troll to expose Huffington Post's bigotry and lack of fact-checking. The Press Ombudsman issued a very stern rebuke towards HuffPo, stating that they have violated numerous sections of the press code. The agency said it has found HuffPo of publishing hate speech and publishing speech that targets a specific group of people. Wow, it must be nice to feel like a specific group of people that is capable of having hate speech thrown at them and be white at the same time. According to the agency, HuffPo's, they literally wrote HuffPo, I think that's an accident, but HuffPo's article was discriminatory and denigratory to white males. Fucking white males. Cape Town. The Huffington Post has been ordered to, this is the actual message. The Huffington Post has been ordered to apologize to the public for publishing a racist and sexist blog that incited hate speech, titled, "Could It Be Time to Deny White Men the Franchise?" In a strongly worded finding, Press Ombudsman Johan Retief, I guess, said editor, Vahrashi Pillay had violated numerous sections of the press code and had contributed to the erosion of public trust in the media. The publication, which has launched last year as a sister to News 24 in the Media 24 stable, has already complied fully with the Ombuds order to publish an apology of equal prominence and position to the blog, and has included a link copy of the full finding as ordered. In related news, the editor-in-chief of Huffington Post, South Africa's Vahrashi Pillay, who I mentioned earlier, has presented a resignation letter to her employers, and it has been accepted. News 24, Huffington Post's SA parent company, says her decision to resign was in response to rebuke from the Press Ombudsman. She has announced the company has accepted the resignation from her position as editor-in-chief of the Huffington Post, South Africa. Her resignation followed immediately on the release earlier today of the findings of the Press Ombudsman that a blog published on the site was malicious and discriminatory. Pillay said, I respect the office of the Press Ombudsman and have decided to tender my resignation. Thank you to Media 24 for this opportunity and all the best to the team at Huffington Post, South Africa going forward. Like I said in the beginning, I don't like governmental agencies having the right to censor hate speech. However, if there are laws in place in a certain country to ensure that people don't say discriminatory things towards minorities, then the least they can do is ensure that said laws are also applied fairly when white men are the ones being targeted. I disagree with the Press Ombudsman decision, but I respect their consistency.
But prejudice plus power.
There's something else to point out here, but it's from a different article on the same thing. And this was Times Live. This is timeslive.co.za. So I'm not sure exactly where that is, but I ran into that article in a different forum, and one of the quotes in it, let's see, where is it? Varashi Pillay, let's see. Pillay claimed the blog was pretty standard for feminist theory and that there was nothing in the article that should have shocked or surprised anybody. It's the one line I'm going to read from it. The whole rest of it is very similar to the other article, but that's significant in and of itself. Pretty standard for feminist theory. For feminist theory, it's standard, right? For someone to put forth the argument that a group should lose their voting rights based on ethnicity and sex. A person who made it to the top editorial position at a nation's outlet for the Huffington Post, which is a multinational media corporation. A person who made it to the top editorial position for that believed that something being standard for feminist theory would make statements that would otherwise be shocking statements, very shocking statements, into a respectable editorial. Guys, that is reference material. When you get told that feminism is not about hating men, and when you get told feminists have no power, that right there is reference material. A person who made the top editorial position at a national outlet for an international media company felt that saying something was standard feminist theory would turn a shocking, sexist, racist statement into a respectable editorial.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and when they say, oh, but it's just from South Africa, say, well, it's the Huffington Post, isn't it?
Yeah, and that means they're
It's
still
not like the South African
beholden.
Times or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're still beholden to the rest of the corporation. They're still beholden to the overall umbrella of the Huffington Post.
Right.
And she thought that that would excuse making such a foul statement as an editorial.
Yep.
But, you know, feminists have no power, and it's not about hating men.
None. Not at all. And you know what the other thing, too, if I'm not mistaken, apparently they when they found out that this was a they were getting duped, and this really wasn't an actual feminist person writing this, they apparently went after the guy and got him fired from his job as well. So again, yes, they don't have any power. No power whatsoever. None. They're the oppressed class, obviously.
Whoa.
Yep.
So basically, they loved the guy when they thought he really thought that way.
Right. Oh,
But
when
as soon as they found out he was
female, though.
making, and they thought he was a chick that thought
Yeah.
that way, yeah. But as soon as they find out that he's a dude and he's actually making fun of how extreme they are, well, that's unacceptable.
That's a bit
And
too
then
far.
they just go and demonstrate that he was right.
Yep.
See, and that's the kind of thing. It's like, it's kind of wonderful, and it's kind of sad that this has to happen, though, because it seems the only way to get attention on these kind of things is to actually do something like this. Like, basically, you have to play by their rules and use their set of rules against them, to the point where something like this can happen, because you can't say, they're being racist against white men, because they're like, oh, whatever, whatever, nobody cares, whatever, MRA, shut up, go away, nobody cares what you have to say. But if you do this, and the guy did a little sneaky on him, and it's kind of sad, but it's kind of great. But it's still kind of sad that this has to be the way that you have to get into that conversation to point this sort of thing out before anybody will actually take a look at it,
And it goes to show that it goes to show that we're in that position that we talked about earlier with respect to the pose and everything, that
Right.
it's just that hard to
Mhm.
tell the difference
Yeah.
because they've become that extreme.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. Anybody else got anything else to add? I got nothing.
No.
The
The only other thing I would add is I would recommend bookmarking the article I just read, so that you do a Google search for HuffPost essay editor Varashni Pillay resigns after damning Ombud ruling. And when you see the article is Times Live, and it's .co.za as then you've got the right article. Bookmark that to use in arguments when you find out, you've got a feminist that's, oh no, feminism has no power. The bad things that are done in feminism's name are not the fault of feminists. That's the patriarchy is causing that. And feminism is not about hating men. You can highlight that paragraph. The fact that she said, oh yeah, this is standard for feminist theory. No, nobody should be shocked by this. And it doesn't matter whether they agree that it's standard for feminist theory. It's practiced so much. It's so accepted by mainstream feminism that her experience tells her that if she just says that, she can get anything accepted.
Yeah. Michael Keller says...
accepted.
Oh, go ahead, Mike.
Speaking of getting anything accepted, I really think Godfrey Elfwick has the power to bring someone down. I reckon if he played his cards right and actually gets one in, he could bring a newspaper to ruin as well. And not that I'm encouraging people to do this. I know it seems extremely easy to troll these people now because they've become trolls of themselves, but I would never encourage the trolls and the autists of the chans to indulge in.
But not all heroes wear capes. That's how I would just throw that in there. Okay, so we're gonna wrap up the show then and move on to our Scott.
One more thing. Yeah. Don't just bookmark these things. Actually, go to archive.is.
Archive it. Yeah.
Archive. Yeah. For
yeah.
Sure.
It's already archived.
Okay. Cool.
Excellent. Yeah. Like the internet should never forget, and it usually doesn't.
Precisely.
So.
Yep.
All right, so anyway, so we're going to go ahead and wrap up the show. We're going to move on to the bonus story, which is the story of a new app that tells women how many times they were man-interrupted during the day, called Woman Interrupted, because this is what empowerment sounds like. And
this is the darkest timeline.
It's the dankest timeline.
No, it is. I wish it was the dankest. This is the darkest timeline. Fucking hell.
So we're going to go ahead and go on into the after show. If you want to join us in our after show, either as a viewer or as a participant, please go to our Patreon at www.patreon.com/honeybadgerradio. One small amount gets you to the ability to watch the shows. A slightly larger one will let you join us in the channel and talk about the bonus topics. So that's it. Yeah. Patreon.com/honeybadgerradio. Also, join us on Minecraft. We have a Minecraft server, and if you become a patron, you can also play in the Minecraft server with our other Minecraft people, which I mentioned before. If you like Block Lives, then, just make that happen. Otherwise, I'm going to accuse you of being a bigot in your high definition world. I don't know. You guys, some people don't have the poly counts that you have, and you have to take advantage of that.
Yeah.
Your poly privilege. Max, you're going to say something?
Yeah, just so you know, the entire world may or may not be filled with giant recreations of dicks. Just so you know.
Yeah, it may not be, but
and Max is definitely not responsible for that. Absolutely
not whatsoever. Nope. I mainly just make giant shrines to myself because
and swastikas.
Yeah. Well, no. It's a good luck charm.
It's a
Tibetan good luck charm.
It's a Buddhist symbol. It's a Buddhist symbol of fortune. All right. Anyway, so we're moving on, and we'll see you guys in the next time we do one of these fucking things. I'll see you Thursday.